What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the college football live stream here. Fantasy Alarm, DFS Alarm, coming to you live from our own home studios. Me and Pete Cole, as we do every Saturday morning, just kind of previewing all of these games we got going on, mostly from the DFS perspective, position by position. But if you guys have any questions about some bets or some individual players. Maybe I know that we got some like player props and stuff out there, but I've never delved into that. But if you're into that sort of thing, but we're taking all your questions on the live chat, the Discord chat over at Fantasy Alarm. So go there now to get your questions in. And as you know, if you tuned in this before, we're answering all your questions, helping you guys build winning lineups, as I hope we do. Pete, how are you doing for this week 6 in college football we got?
Yeah, good morning. I for some reason I can't see the YouTube chat, so I'm not gonna. I don't know why I'm not gonna say any questions. But yeah, another week. I can't believe it's week 6, right? It's already, down here in Florida we get no fall, so it just seems weird. It's already October, but it's been a good season, man. It really has been. We're just saying. I think it's been like one bad week I've had. The Brendan Lewis week from Colorado, but it's gonna be another good slate today. This is one of the maybe it's not a tough build slate, but it's a lot of people you can use. I think a lot of interchangeable parts, I should say.
Oh yeah,
so, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, there's always multiple ways you can go with lineups, and it's always fun building these lineups. And hopefully we offer some clarity here. If you are watching this and you haven't yet checked out the playbook, the DFS college football playbook that I put out yesterday on dfsalarm.com. Go check that out. Kind of read more in-depth thoughts on players and lineup strategies if you want. And as we're talking through it here, and then if you're playing tonight's night slate, it's kicking off at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm pretty sure. Pete has that covered with the playbook, and that's live right now on dfsalarm.com. So, kind of bookmark that page and build some lineups as you're watching these games once we kick off here at noon Eastern. Well, let's dive right into it. As you guys appreciate you guys joining us here on Saturday morning. We got 12 game slate here in this main early afternoon slate, and 6 games kicking off at noon. And some of those are among our highest scoring and definitely games we're looking at overall to build lineups from. I'll start with Maryland, Ohio State. That's got a 71.5 over under now. It keeps going up every day. And Ohio State's big favorites, 3 touchdown favorites in that one. Virginia, Louisville is the second highest scoring, and that's a game we're definitely going to talk about because Louisville's barely a 2.5 point favorite, 69.5 over under. Arkansas, Ole Miss is right below that, 67 over under, or 66. I'm seeing it go down here, and Ole Miss is 5.5 point favorites. Oklahoma, Texas. Texas is Texas is 3.5 point underdogs to Oklahoma, and a 65 over under there. And then we got Wake Forest, Syracuse, Boise State, BYU, South Carolina, Tennessee. Those 3 games are in the 57 to 59 range and could creep up once we get closer to noon here if people are thinking those are going to be more high scoring than Vegas says. But let's just dive into all these games from a quarterback perspective. I'll tell you, I mean, I think obviously we're targeting these high scoring offenses and these high scoring games, starting with the quarterback position, and Virginia Louisville has 2 that I'm going back and forth on, and I'll probably end up having one or both in the same lineup. It's hard to fit both, obviously, but we got Brennan Armstrong for Virginia and Malik Cunningham for Louisville. I mean, this game, both teams don't play defense, so this game's going to go back and forth. It's going to be high scoring. Thoughts on those 2 guys compared to, we got Matt Corral at 10K. CJ Stroud is up there too.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, if you can get Brennan Armstrong and Malik Cunningham in your lineup, that'd be awesome. I think you need one of them in cash, and what I've been seeing pretty much, it looks like Malik is going to be the highest projected. So, I mean, I'm seeing him probably close to like 50% ownership. And then Armstrong is probably the next closest. But it's all, so I think Malik is probably going to be playing cash, especially if he goes off and you don't have him. And I mean, so far we're saying off the air, you can't go wrong with. I mean, he's got 2 rushing touchdowns in every game this season, and I don't think it's going to stop today, especially the way Virginia is running. I mean, Virginia can't stop anybody on the ground. That's why I have some interest in the Louisville running back also.
Yeah,
but Louis, so let me see, Virginia. Of course, I have Louisville their stats in front of me, and I just lost them. But okay, so Virginia's allowing 194 yards a game on the ground. So 5 rushing yards per attempt. So if you can get both of them, great. You want to make a game stack, but I think in cash you want at least one of them. And Malik is probably smart way. I mean, that's a high implied there. So they're both giving up like 25 points a game to quarterbacks also. So I would say Malik 1, and then Brennan Armstrong 1A, and to me, everybody else kind of just falls behind, like the Strouds and guys like that, and Spencer Rattler, who I think is a good GPP play, which we'll get to in a second. But they're your top 2 definitely.
Yeah, and with Cunningham, it's like when Louisville gets into the red zone and near the goal line, he is their goal line back. He's their red zone guy getting the carries. Over, Jalen Mitchell is the guy you're referencing there as the Louisville's lead back, but he's not really scoring touchdowns because it's Cunningham that's taking those away from him. That's why he's scored 2 rushing touchdowns every game thus far, and he'll probably find the end zone multiple times again because of that bad Virginia defense, as you mentioned. So, and it's usually if a bad rushing defense, we're like, all right, let's immediately look to the lead back. But this is a guy that's, doing enough damage on the ground where he's gonna be pretty valuable for fantasy DFS because he's the guy when they get down close. He's the guy having the ball in his hands, and Louisville's not going to change that because it's been working thus far.
No, exactly. That's one thing we should be confident that they're not going to change the game plan. Yeah. So
no,
and you know what? No. You bring up Mitchell quick because I just saw that stat. He's fumbled the last 2 weeks. So you do, and I'm on Mitchell, but you just have that in the back of your mind that they do have a true freshman there, running back also. But that to me it makes me more that Malik's going to be running the ball.
Yeah, and especially just with if you think about this Louisville team from what they were last year, who they had last year, Des Fitzpatrick, Tutu Atwell in the receiving corps, and they had Javian Hawkins. That's like 3 big playmakers from the offense that are gone, and they're letting Cunningham, be the main playmaker when they're down close. Like they're gonna let him run it in or throw it in. So it's in a high-scoring game like this, Cunningham's probably going to be involved in any touchdown, whether he's throwing it or running it, which is, I think more than can be said about other quarterbacks on the slate. So it's like I get why he's priced that high. And like you said, he'll probably be very popular in cash. And Brennan Armstrong, I think, is probably the GPP pivot because people will likely just go Cunningham and not look at Armstrong because of similar pricing. And Armstrong is, above 9K, which is tough to swallow for a Virginia quarterback, I guess. But I think he's in a great matchup too. Louisville's defense has not been great, and this high scoring game, it's just going to be offense on both sides. So we'll get to some other players from these offenses down the line here, but the Cunningham, Armstrong for sure. So just wanted to talk on Matt Corral. 10K is a lot, and this is what Bryce Young was last week against Ole Miss, and he ended up being the better play than Matt Corral, ironically. But are you just ignoring Corral for cash? I guess. I mean, GPP is always in play, but that's tough. 10K is tough, especially when you get Cunningham right there with just a safer floor, probably.
Yeah, and the thing with Corral, this Arkansas is a really good defense, and I
They are.
honestly I think their defense is just as good or better than Bama. Yeah, it's a big total. We know we score, but this is the same team last year that he ripped out a whole was like 5 or 6 interceptions that one game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the same team. Of course, is Matt Corral. Of course, he's in play at 10K, but I think there is, this is one of the weeks, like I said, it's going to be one pay up, one value play, I think, at quarterback. And he's, at the end of the day, he's probably going to have a high score, but I just respect Arkansas's defense too much. And to me, he's only a GPP play. But of course, he's got 30-point floor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the offense is so good that he can obviously have a big game. But like you said, the Arkansas defense scares me a little bit off of him. And last week, I think I made the right I did make the right pivot. I just saw how popular Corral was being, and I was like, I'm going to make the room and just put Bryce Young in there instead because I'm a lot less scared of the Ole Miss defense than the Alabama defense. And as you said, Arkansas's defense is probably better. Alabama's defense is obviously good, but they are they still let up like 21 points in garbage time to Ole Miss last week. Like they'll let teams score some points here. Well, let's get to some of the lower guys. You mentioned Spencer Rattler, so let's talk about him in this Oklahoma-Texas game. Going to be a great one to watch. And you got Rattler on one side, you got Thompson on the other. I think both in play for GPPs, and Rattler's maybe on the edge of cash just because he's so cheap, and for a guy that's a Heisman contender. Maybe not right now, but he at the beginning of the season it was like, all right, this guy's the QB1 of the whole season, and he's had a couple down games fantasy wise, so we're kind of waiting for him to break out, and this might be it because this game should be a shootout with Texas. So I don't mind Rattler here.
Yeah, I definitely get a Rattler in a lineup. It's going to be a GPP, but this game always goes off. This is the game last year when it went to like 4 overtimes to begin the season.
Yeah.
And Rattler had like a bad game most of the game, but next thing you know, I remember seeing him in the DFS. He had like 40 DK points, but they went to 4 overtimes. So definitely a GPP play. I think last week was probably his best week against Kansas State, and he still didn't play awesome. But Texas is only allowing 17 fantasy points average to opposing quarterbacks this season. So it's not a shoo-in. They held Max Duggan. They held KG Jefferson to like 13 points. So
yeah,
once again, GDP only. But I do have enough respect for Rattler where I think this could be the day he goes off. That's why GPs. I'm gonna get some Mims in there with him. Was really cheap. All these guys, like the Woods, Hasselwood, all these guys. But Rattler, yeah, GDP only. But I think he's one of the good plays. To me, he's one of the most intriguing plays of the slate.
Yeah, I don't mind him at all. And the Texas defense it's been good and bad. I think it's up and down in my opinion. And I've heard like some people talk about this whole matchup in general, expecting Oklahoma to just lay it on Texas, like the 3.5. It's only 3.5 point spread there.
Yeah, it's tight.
And yeah, which tells me I think Texas has a legit chance to win this game. And I think the defense is actually going to put pressure on Rattler. I've watched him multiple times this year. He does not look. He's not clicking. The offense is not clicking, and it's weird because we'll get to receivers, but all these Oklahoma receivers are cheap because they've been underperforming stats wise. Marvin Mims has not been sharp for most of the season, and I just think he's lacking like a true playmaker. That has not shown through yet on the offensive side. He's just not comfortable back there. And they almost got upset multiple times this year. So. I mean, this is definitely a spot where he could it's a kind of boomer bust. So yeah, GPP is where you should go.
That offensive line has been bad, and guys like Mims just don't seem like they're explosive this year.
Yeah,
and it's. But then you got when he's 4.4, Hasselwood is 4.1. The one thing is these guys are out in that field running routes all day. So if Rattler gets hot, somebody's going to be recipient of it. So once again, it goes back to, high ceiling and GBP only. You can't be playing any of this in cash.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Looking at some other quarterbacks here. I mean, who else are you looking for as, I guess, as your quarterback two? Because, it's super flex option here. Just because we got, if you're going Cunningham, you're going Armstrong up at top. The pool gets a little tough to kind of trust for cash, I think. There's some names, and you'll see in the playbook. I wrote about Hendon Hooker, KJ Jefferson, Talia Tagovailoa, are a couple. I think like Sam Hartman's in the conversation. Casey Thompson on the other side of this Oklahoma-Texas matchup is in the conversation. I think like you could either throw Hank Bachmeier in there against BYU. That's always a risk, but like, $7K is pretty cheap for him. We were talking before we got started here, Garrett Schrader for Syracuse going against Wake, another high scoring game, and Wake's defense isn't, too scary. I think even, 6'3", got Noah Vedral against Michigan State. That's also like an option there. Of all those guys, which way are you leaning as your super flex?
Well, I hope it's just not because I'm a Syracuse guy, but I am on Schrader this week, and he just all you got to do is look at the numbers. First of all, I think 6'7" is way too cheap, and yeah, we said KJ Jefferson's down there against a defense I think is a little bit overrated, but we saw, he came off. He had 43 points last week against Florida State, and Dino Barber said even going into that game that they're going to keep running them until somebody can stop them. And guess what? Nobody can stop them yet. So can Wake Forest? I don't think so. I mean, the defense is a little bit better than it was last year, but Malik and Louisville ran 208 yards off them last week, and I think Malik ran. Yeah, they ran for 208 yards. And if you look at Garrett Schrader, now the kid can't throw. I mean, I could throw better than Schrader, but you're getting a running back at 6'7" in your super flex spot that's still going to throw the ball. So he only threw 150 yards against Florida State, but it's good enough. It's more than a normal running back's going to do. He's had seven touchdowns in the last 3 games. So I mean, to me, This is it's a floor play at that price. I think it's a great floor play. Actually, now I'm seeing Wake Forest is the 5th worst defense in quarterback fantasy points allowed, 21.4. And he gave up 2 touchdowns, of course, from last week at 46, and he had 46. The whole team had 207. But to me, I'm probably going to put Schrader in that superflex and hope it doesn't become a Brandon Lewis like he did in Colorado a few weeks ago. But I just think he's going to run it. He's that whole team. Yeah, they have Tucker, but it's all about Schrader right now. So Schrader's my favorite play. And if I didn't, like you mentioned, then you go on like a KJ Jefferson. I think the Ole Miss defense is a little bit overrated. But to me, Jefferson is more looking at it's probably more of a GPP play. But I'm all about Schrader. And then, what is your opinion on Tulua here? He's even cheaper than Schrader because I think he's too cheap. He could get the right game flow. Losing Demas does hurt him, but is he a cash play at 6K? Because I am seeing his ownership is popped right up there. He's right there, but he's a little bit higher than Schrader and a little bit under Armstrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm running the edge of him being cash viable, and I think he is, in my opinion. It's not. I'm wearing my Maryland shirt today. I did go to. I'm an alum there, and I watched last Friday's game where he just bombed. It was bad. It was bad. And losing Demas did not help at all. That offense just kind of shut down, and he was trying to force it in. They were trailing. He was just trying to throw it and take some chances, and he got picked off 5 times. It was a terrible game. But if you think about that, so he got intercepted 5 times, and he still finished with almost 12 fantasy points, which is insane because of he threw for 2 touchdowns, but he didn't even throw for 200 yards. But I think he's gonna get back to that. He's gonna be throwing it a lot. This offense is gonna be built on his arm the rest of the season, and against Ohio State, a defense that's gotten exposed at times this year. I know they look better against Rutgers, but that's I mean, it's Rutgers, and I don't think Rutgers is as good as maybe we thought. Maryland's
Right.
like they're still projected. This game we mentioned at the start, 71.5 over under, and Ohio State's 21.5 point favorites. You do the math there, and Maryland's still projected to score about 20 points or so. 3 touchdowns, and it's probably all going to come from Tonga Valoa throwing the ball. I don't know who's going to catch it, but it's probably not going to be on the ground, in my opinion. I think it's going to be Talia throwing it a ton. He's going to put up numbers here. Maybe he has a pick or two, but I just think he's going to be very active throwing it. You saw like just in other games that were closer, that were lower scoring. Illinois, a 20-17 ball game. He threw it 43 times at 350 passing yards. West Virginia, 30-24, 36 attempts. Yeah, and he's got 3 touchdowns in that game. I mean, I think he's probably good for at least 20 fantasy points here, which at 6K is really a good bargain. And him if you compare him to like guys like Schrader, like I kind of like KJ Jefferson too, but I mean you're saving a little bit of money there to get someone else in your lineup. Like I don't mind that at all, and we'll get to it in a second. But there's some cheap Maryland receivers that you can pair with him that makes like a really cheap mini stack, especially if you're playing Henderson from Ohio State, or if you're playing C.J. Stroud on the other side, or one of these Ohio State receivers. All of a sudden you have a nice little game stack for the highest scoring game on the slate. So, I don't mind that whole thing at all.
One side note about Tua, you can't be playing him on FanDuel. He's 9K on FanDuel, I say. So that's a big difference between DK and FanDuel. So that's a $3,000 difference. You don't see that too often.
And by the way, someone had asked last night, I think I saw, like, why don't we do FanDuel? We've said it on here before, but just to kind of reiterate is that FanDuel's main slate lasts all day, so it has all of the night games in there too. And it's just it's a little hard for us, as content makers to cover every single one of those games and reasonably have strategies for every game, because there's a lot of players involved. So what me and Pete do is just split it up. One takes what DraftKings does is have the early slate games and then the night slate games on different playbooks. But obviously, if you like different guys from each, look at both playbooks and kind of piece them together. And we're here in the Discord chat to kind of answer those questions anyway. So that's just a little background on that if you're wondering. But yeah, I always like looking at sometimes at comparing the prices on FanDuel, because someone like him is 9K, and I think FanDuel's giving him the proper respect as being like a guy that can smash here and have like a really good game statistically, even though if Maryland loses by a bunch, it's still going to be a game where like they score 20 to 30 points and Ohio State's still scoring 50. So it's like, it's going to be a high scoring game. So yeah, I think that's interesting that like he's so much cheaper on DraftKings. These prices sometimes get a little too reactive. So we got some other players that we'll touch on that's like, why is this guy so low? Or high for that matter. Sometimes they overreact. But yeah, so that's basically quarterback here. It's a guy that got priced up. It will transition to running back is Bijan Robinson. He's over 9K, 9,300 on DraftKings. Normally I'd love to lock him in for cash, but that's too expensive to not waste, but like just spend that much on him where he could be going elsewhere. And we got some other running backs to look at for sure. But it's going to make Robinson go a little overlooked, just ownership wise, I think, right? I mean, I don't mind him at all. If you play him, it's like what you're getting. He's going to be heavily involved in this Texas offense today, especially in a close game. He's going to get a ton of work. Last week he had 35 carries and had 238 total yards. So it's like in a close game against TCU. So he's going to have similar workload. He might not have that many yardage or touchdowns, but he's going to be involved.
Yeah, like Rattler, he's like he's obviously my top running back GBP, and you're probably going to get him like 15% owned in GBPs, mainly because that price.
Yeah.
And hey, the guy's a bell cow. I mean, he's touched that ball 35 times. I think 35 times against TCU. And you're going to see him touch the ball probably 30 times again today.
Yep.
We saw what Deuce did last week to this team. I think he had 9 or 10 catches a week ago. So you're going to see that same thing with Robinson, especially if they fall behind against Oklahoma. So Robinson's a great play, maybe the top raw points and raw projections on the slate, but 9-3 when you got guys like Luddy Brown, $3,000 cheaper, you just can't play him. If you play him in cash, you're probably going to lose Malik, and you're going to have a whole bunch of scrubs, for your receivers, and so it's going to be almost impossible to see him in cash. But if you have the money, yeah, of course he's a great cash play. I just don't think you can get him in.
Yeah, it's kind of how I feel like about Drake London, at receiver. Yeah. And I saw on the night slate he's really was 9K. The late. Yeah, is that the night slate or the late night slate that he's on?
He's 7 p.m.
Yeah, so trying to fit him in is a similar thing, but you know what you're getting in both guys. So I don't blame you for doing it. Well, so then looking down, I mean, there's a big price drop to the next highest guys. Kenny Walker at 8,100, Tyler Algier at 7,800, Travion Henderson 7,500. I think all those guys are in kind of like at the top tier if you're looking cash. I mean, which way are you leaning between those guys? I'll even throw Letty Brown from West Virginia because he's 6,500, which is pretty cheap for what he is.
Yeah, and I'm probably good because some of these prices I'm gonna end up with probably 2 of Letty, Algier, and Walker.
Okay.
Letty's had my number 1 because of his price, and I don't think one other West Virginia running back touched the ball last week on the ground. The backup quarterback though does come in and vulture for him sometimes, but to me he's one of the best. No, he's still a bell cow to me. Cowbell. He's still a bell cow to me, and he's had some down games, but we saw what Breece Hall did to this team. So Letty is, wrapped up with Hall. So Letty's had my 1. Then I got to make a decision. I'm going to play Algier or Kenny Walker. Kenny Walker he's another bell cow. I mean, he just gets volume after. Just crazy volume. He gets over 20 carries a game. He's a true, he's a true first down back. He's a true red zone back. They're going to get in the ball in the red zone.
Yeah.
But Rutgers still does scare me a little bit. They're allowing just 3.77 yards per game. 3.77 yards allowed, which is good. We see what they did to Michigan that week. Michigan's got 2 really good running backs. They held those guys to under 3 yards per attempt. Maybe. Michigan State's got the passing game, with Peyton Thorne that could maybe force Rutgers from loading the box. But Walker's probably my 3rd because I'm all about Algier also. And I know there's some questions about Algier with the different quarterbacks. You don't know who the quarterback's going to be, which probably is going to affect, certain quarterbacks, that's going to make him a better runner. But I still think Algier could end up with the highest point total on the slate if everything goes right for him. So right now I'm looking at Letty, then Algier, and then probably Kenny Walker the 3rd. So my 3rd pick probably would be my alternate lineup.
Yeah.
I wouldn't talk to you about all 3 of those guys.
Yeah.
I think you want at least 2 of them in your lineup.
The Algier is one of my favorite plays, I think, at running back, just because I think so we got Jaron Hall expected to play, to be back in there. He's been banged up, and I think they want him back just because of his his leadership and he knows the offense, and you mentioned they had that injury to Romney at quarterback. I think just to avoid having a 3rd string in there for this is a big game against Boise State.
Yes.
But BYU is still favored by 6 here, 6.5, at home, high total 58. in my opinion, they're going to lean more on Algier here, and Boise State's rush defense is not good. It's one of the worst on this whole slate, giving up 194 rushing yards per game. And they, we saw Algier last week against Utah State's bad rush defense. He racked up over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 22 carries. Just was a smash play if you played him on that slate, and he's like their workhorse. I know they have other guys involved, but he's kind of their lead guy. And I
huge
feel like
game last week.
Yeah, huge game. And I feel like they'll lean on him in this big game because BYU is gonna want to win this game against Boise State badly, and I think that's why they're maybe rushing back Hall a little bit earlier than they'd want to, but maybe that just means he's handing it off to Algier a ton. So that's my lean there. I mean, I just think his floor is going to be very safe for cash, Algier. Maybe his ceiling isn't as high as someone like, Letty Brown. Even Henderson from Ohio State has a really high ceiling, today. By the way, with Henderson, we just haven't touched on him yet, or this Ohio State offense yet, because we didn't even talk about Stroud. But, they're 3 touchdown favorites over Maryland here. Really tough to kind of trust any of these guys in cash because, we'll get to, we haven't talked about Olave versus Wilson, but that's always a decision. And they're kind of both taken away from each other, touchdown wise and catches wise. But also, like, Ohio State just seems like they get up to, this has been true for years now, but they get up to big leads and then all the starters like just are either out of the game or, the touchdown production just spread around so much that you can't really funnel in on one guy for DFS. So, like with Henderson, it's, even though he is now the lead guy compared to, with Master Teague taking a back seat and Mayan Williams dealing with an injury. I don't know if he's going to play today or not, but
he is out. I saw him confirmed out.
Oh, he's definitely out. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's out. But even that, it's like, last week, even with Williams out last week, Henderson only had 8 carries for 71 yards against Rutgers because they got ahead so early and just used their other running backs. They got Crowley there that they give touches to. So it's, I don't know, tough to trust Henderson for me, but like GPP, like fire him up. He's going to, probably score 4 times a day.
Yep. And, I look at him every week and like, I was going to say that too when you were talking about quarterbacks, and I kind of just forgot about it. We got to do that every week with Ohio State being one of the highest implied, but who are we going to take from them? And I mean, I think if Maryland can keep the game a little bit competitive, you may see a larger workload this week. I mean, he had 2 straight games of only 8 carries. I remember Ohio State's got a bye week next week, so maybe they may feel a little bit more comfortable leaning on him. Because he is the featured back there. But they also baby him so much where, that's why they pulled him out last week because, they said he was banged up a little bit or whatever. And that's, they had no reason to play him. He's their little shiny new toy. So they don't want to get him hurt. So I totally agree with you. GBP, yep, fire him up. He could have a huge game. He could have a huge game just one quarter. But cash. Yeah. When you got these other guys sitting there, I think it's too risky when you got guys like Letty. What's Trevion? He's 7,500. So he's more than Letty. He's same price as Sean Tucker. But we did see what Goodson did last week. I would be.
Yeah, the Penn State Iowa games just kind of one I'm overall. I'm just avoiding just because the low total. I just. It's what is it at right now? I think it's been going down slowly. It's at 41 now. Like that is, and I think it's
because he is such a volume runner too. Like I want to play him at that price, but you're right.
Dude,
Penn State is
last week against. I guess it was last week against Maryland. Yeah, because I was watching the game a lot. He had so many carries down near the goal line that he didn't get in. I mean, he had. And if you look at it, he had 19 carries for 66 yards, 3.5 yards per carry average. I mean, and honestly, of those 19 carries, I think like 5 to 10 were in the red zone where he just got stuffed. And I was like, all right, we're gonna figure out how to score a different way. And so it's hard to trust him for me. I mean, just from seeing, I know he's got the volume for sure. But he needs he needs to break a long run or something to actually return value, especially in this game against Penn State, Iowa. Kind of tough to see that. But yeah, I don't mind. As you said, like, if I would rather play Brown over Henderson for sure. Looking at some of these other running backs, I mean, we got the mid range kind of tough, in the 6K, 5K range. I think Justice Ellison's interesting. I wrote about him in the playbook. Kind of starting to take over that backfield, in my opinion, compared to Beal Smith, because Beal Smith hasn't been too impressive. Beal Smith is still the lead back there, but I think they've been doing this. Wake has using multiple running backs. So they want to work Ellison in more, and they're starting to do that. So, it's not surprising to see Ellison now actually more expensive than Beal Smith on the slate. Oklahoma's backfield's interesting. Eric Gray versus Kennedy Brooks. I think both are going to get their fair share of touches. Brooks is more cheaper, so he's definitely more in play. But I think both are kind of GPP because you just don't know with this. Especially with Oklahoma, you just don't know who's going to be scoring touchdowns, and since they're both taking away carries from each other, something you have to just keep in mind. I want to get your opinion on a couple guys here, though, that I wrote about in the playbook. Henry Parrish Jr. from Ole Miss, because Jarian Ely is dealing with an injury here. He's got a concussion. A report early this week said he's questionable for this game. I mean, hip, I expect him not to play just because it's a concussion. Like they're always extra cautious with these things. So if he's out, then we got Parrish, we got Snoop Connor, both definitely in play. And then compare him to Jalen Mitchell for Louisville, just $200 cheaper on DraftKings. We talked about him in the Louisville offense earlier. I mean, where are you going with either of those, or are you just ignoring them, or any other running backs cheaper that you're looking at?
Yeah, and I actually had a little debate earlier today with a guy that plays heavy DFS about this too, because I've been on Mitchell all week. I'm pretty much busy. Virginia has stopped nobody on the ground this year.
Yep.
And Mitchell did see like 70% of snaps last week. He has become the one, but I am a little bit worried about the fumbles the last 2 weeks. Still like him though at 4-6. If he misses, which we think, it does put Parrish and Connor in play. But man, my problem is I know I'm going to pick the wrong one. Parrish is going to get a ton of work if Billy misses. Him and Snoop's going to be back there too. But I think Snoop's going to be the one getting the goal line carries. I would probably lean Snoop because of that, and he's also $600 cheaper.
Okay.
But I bet people say I'm crazy. They're cash plays. I think it's a GPP play just because once again you got two guys buying for the work, and they both could have good games. But I would still rank them Mitchell, then Snoop, and then probably Parrish. But I guess all three of them, they're so close together. But one of them's gonna have a big game today, and I've been on Mitchell all week. I just don't want to go off now, as I know if I do go off, he's gonna have a big game. And said Virginia can't stop him. I think we saw what they did to Virginia last weekend. So I'm on Mitchell. Another name I like in that same price range, but more of a GPP play, also is Kevin Harris. I think Harris eventually, I saw some quotes by him. He feels like he's back, and he's been slowly working back. Last week, he had like 50-60% of the snaps. I'm a big Harris guy. Tennessee is giving up like 24, 25 fantasy points to running backs. I just don't think he's fully back yet. But you're going to get one of those big 30, 40 DK point games out of Kevin Harris here soon. Just not sure if this week for it, but just keep that in back in mind. One of these weeks, Kevin Harris will be back, and I like Harris a lot. So besides that, man, there's a lot of there's some bunch of garbage down there. Yeah,
Harris is too cheap for what his talent is, for sure.
Right.
Well, a shout out to Nelson on our Discord chat. If you guys are over there, you can always ask his questions for lineups or any of these games going on. He asks Lakio or Talapapa. That's Boise State running back versus Virginia running back in cash, he says. I like Talapapa. I just think, we're talking about this game plenty. High-scoring game. Louisville's defense has been soft this year. And I know he's splitting work with Hollins in that backfield. Yeah. But I think he's, and I think both are in play on this slate, actually. But, like, the fact that they are splitting work is a little bit scary. But I think Boise State, their backfield's a little bit more murky. And, they got Van Buren still. And I think Holani's he's got a questionable tag, but he could be playing this game as well. I think they have a little bit. I think I just think when I compare them, I look at the higher scoring environment of Virginia Louisville, and the fact that Talapapa has, he is the lead guy for sure. Hollins is getting work, but I think like Boise State, they have three guys that they rotate in. It's a little bit more murky, in my opinion. Which way would you lean there?
I just couldn't consider them cash plays.
Okay.
I do like Lakio, though, if Holani was out. I think it's kind of good value. But you could definitely see Tulapapa or Hollins, either of them could definitely go off in this spot. But you need to be if you're down there in cash looking for cash plays at 4.8 for guys like Lakio, they just go to Jalen Mitchell at 4.6. I mean, that's I'm going to say. At least Mitchell's going to get, he's seeing 70% of the snaps. So you're playing with fire with any of these guys in cash games.
Yeah, I'll say I think I like Henry Parrish and or Snoop Connor if we get word that Ely is out. I think I kind of like them over Talapapa for cash or Lakio for cash.
Yeah, I would take the Ole Miss guys over those guys in cash too, definitely.
And Jalen Mitchell too, for sure. Yeah. Even we know Jalen Mitchell's going to get the workload, even though he hasn't scored a touchdown. I mean, I know he's going to get the workload as the lead guy for Louisville. So, all right, let's go to receivers here. We got about 15 minutes left in our live stream. If you guys are on the Discord, you're watching here, appreciate it. Get your questions in if you got any. We're keeping an eye on injuries as well, just to keep you guys up to date.
The latest I'm seeing is that they don't see Ely on the field for pregame warmups. That's the latest I saw a minute ago.
Okay, yeah, I don't expect him to play then. If he, that's always a good sign. Like if he's not out there for warmups, like I think I would expect him not to play. Honestly. By the way, I'm also seeing Oklahoma running back Marcus Major will play today, or he'll dress. It says we don't know how much he'll play, but I think we were talking about this a little off air before we went on here. I think the fact that he's back and he's back for, he's academic eligible now. I think the fact that he's back in the mix and he's talented, he's going to probably take some carries away. Maybe it's not this week, but it could be coming soon where he's taking work away from Kennedy Brooks, Eric Gray. Yes. They might just kind of rotate all three in. So that's just, I liked Brooks before, but I'm kind of off of him now. I didn't realize Marcus Major was going to be active for this game, so it's just the whole thing is a little bit murky. With all these interesting backfields, it's like it's kind of tough to pick and choose. But all right, so it's something to note there, and we'll keep an eye on any other injury news coming out. Receivers. I think we were talking about all these high-priced quarterbacks and running backs. I think this is definitely a slate where you need to find some value. And if you go check out the playbook, I wrote about a bunch of options at 5K and below if you're trying to pick a few of those to fit in. But of these high-priced receivers, are you looking at any in cash, or are they all kind of GPP range, and which one is your favorite?
Well, when I was building a little bit before the show, the way I was going, I was coming up with like a couple of values and one cash guy. Man, and I know I'm in the minority. I still like Dotson at 7,300. I still think he's going to see a ton of work as long as as long as things go his way with the game script. But is he cash play? Probably not. Probably my favorite up there is going to be Garrett Wilson. We still get 8 targets a game. Maryland has given up crazy points per game to a wide receiver. So Wilson, Shakir are probably my 2 cash plays up there. But I think it's going to be a more of a slate where you got to drop down and play these guys. Like Rakeem Jarrett's going to be so cheap. He's going to be popular. He's probably going to be the highest owned receiver on the slate. As the day goes on, I'm really starting to like the kid from Virginia a lot. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, but I like Virginia a lot too. Rashawn Henry down there also. So, but I think we can possibly get one higher price guy, and you got to make a decision. It's gonna be, to me, it's between Wilson and Shakir, and they're pretty even right now. Even though probably Wilson when it comes down to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Wilson, like if you're comparing him to Olave too, it's like Olave is obviously the big play guy, and he could break the slate with 3 touchdowns and a ton of yards. But I think like Wilson is a bit more safer. By the way, we're getting shout out to Plug 1965 on the Discord asking earlier if we got any word on Bo Melton. It looks like he's going to be out. I'm seeing something on Twitter, a reporter saying that, or I think it's a fan, but it's a picture from today that says Bo Melton in a sling on the sidelines in street clothes. He had gotten hurt last week against Ohio State. I don't think he'll play. It seemed like it was a more serious injury, so it looks like he is out today against Ohio State.
Oh yeah, I see the same tweet now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something to note, I guess, in the Rutgers receiving core. It's kind of tough to lock in any guys because of that injury. I think Melton was like the only guy, if he was playing, I'd be interested in him. But I mean, you got Crookshank, you got Sanders. I don't know if I'm going to any of those directions, especially we'll get to some of these other cheaper guys. Like you compare some of these cheap Rutgers receivers compared to, Rakeem Jarrett from Maryland or Jayshon Jones from Maryland. I don't mind them. The Louisville guys are cheap enough. Virginia you mentioned. So I actually wanted to highlight Keaton Thompson from Virginia. He is now wide receiver eligible after being quarterback in the quarterback pool previously. He's now a receiver. I think he's a great play at 4,600. I think maybe I'm a little higher than normal people would, just because like I'm fascinated by the fact that he's such, how talented he is from being a former quarterback and how Virginia uses him in so many ways, running and receiving. They're not really letting him throw it all right now, but that's always a possibility just because he's a former quarterback. But I think his floor is high enough with how many total touches he's getting a week. Mm-hmm. And I think 4,600 is pretty cheap for him. And I feel like his price is gonna slowly go up just because of he might have that floor that's higher than other people in this range.
Yeah, and he's right down there with my favorites. I just he's averaging almost over 13 fantasy points a game, and he's pretty much a utility player. He's getting 7 targets, 5 receptions. But last week he had 10 targets. So, and he dropped a really easy touchdown pass. If he didn't drop that touchdown pass in the end zone, we'd probably be talking more about him. So, yeah, he's definitely in play. So possibly, I hate doing that, but you could possibly run like a Thompson and then lower for your 3 receivers, because I'm over Jarrett. I'm definitely on Rashawn Henry today. I like Henry a lot. And then, maybe you can go up and get a guy like a Bijan or something like that. It's maybe a little bit risky, but there's a lot of value down here today where you should be comfortable with one of these 3 to 4K receivers. There's enough, especially when you got Rakeem Jarrett sitting there, and Jayshon Jones also too. So
Yeah, the Maryland guys are for sure like so Demas is out for the year, suffered a bad injury last game against Iowa, and all these Maryland guys are weirdly priced down, I think, because like we've always seen this with against Ohio State. It seems like all the DFS, the DraftKings at least is a little scared just because of the matchup or perceived matchup. But Ohio State's defense is not as strong as you'd think. They're going to allow a ton of points. Even if it's a blowout game, they're still going to allow some offensive production, and that's why we talked about Tungai Valoa as a great play, and all these cheap receivers for Maryland. You got Raheem Jarrett, you got Jayshon Jones, the tight end Okonkwo is in play as well. Has 3 touchdowns already this year. I think like you can look at any of those guys. A lot of them outside of them are kind of dart throws. We might have someone step up now that Demas is out. I think it's going to be Jayshon Jones. He's now expected to start in Demas's place, and he's 3,500. It's pretty cheap. Now that we're – what's that?
I think – you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. With Demas being out, I think Rakeem's a 1, right? I mean, he's
he's the lead guy. He's the. I do worry that he's going to see more like the better coverage. Off the top of my head, I don't know who if Ohio State has a shutdown guy right now, but he's going to see more attention, which tells me Jayshon Jones is going to have more opportunities here and. But you just can't trust that. I think it can cash. It's Raheem Jarrett. It will be more popular for sure.
I just get worried about. I know they're the popular plays, Jarrett and Jones and these guys, and I do totally agree with you on Jarrett seeing the better coverage. Actually, Ohio State is their defense has actually been better the last couple of weeks. I just saw a stat up here too about the interceptions, but either way, man, I start seeing traps sometimes too. It seems like all the time when everybody gets all pumped up on some of these guys. Well, last week there was some guys around some of the Rutgers plays, so I just don't want to overly compensate myself with these Maryland receivers. I know a lot of people are playing 2 of them in their cash lineups, and I just think that's a little dangerous. But Jarrett already is accounting for 20% of the team's target share, and now with Demas out, they're got to throw out another 20% between him and Jayshon Jones. But I totally agree. I think Jarrett's the cash play. Jones is more of a value dart GPP play, but you're probably going to see Jones catching some ownership here. So
I think if we're looking at Maryland at all, you want to look at their passing game and receivers and not the running game. So that's why I think some of these cheaper guys are interesting.
If you don't play Tallulah as your quarterback, I think you do want a piece of that in your cash line, at least with receivers, then, right?
Yeah, I think it's not unrealistic to see Jayshon Jones and or Raheem Jarrett or one of these other guys have 10+ fantasy points.
Yeah.
Just from having 5-6 catches for 50 yards. So yeah, I don't mind any of those guys. I think now that we're in their range, just wanted to bring up the Louisville guys are still really cheap. I think you can easily roll one of these guys in cash. Marshawn Ford is still under 5K. Jordan Watkins, who's now the number 1 there, is 4,500. Justin Marshall for 3,400 is interesting.
I like Marshall. I actually ended up playing Marshall last week, and he's pretty much getting a floor now where he's gonna see seeing targets. He's gonna get 4 or 5 catches. So I like that.
He's had 4 catches each of the last 2 weeks.
There you go.
And Watkins has a good floor too. You just have to pay a little bit more, but he's had 4+ catches in 3 straight, 60+ yards in 2 straight. So yeah, I don't mind that. Those guys, the Oklahoma guys, we were talking about this earlier. They're still really cheap. Marvin Mims probably gonna have a game soon where he just smashes value because he shouldn't be under 5K. But
maybe today.
Last week he had 4 catches for 71 yards. I mean, you put that stat line and you say if you add a touchdown to that stat line, he's obviously more expensive than he is now and would smash value here. So definitely something to look at there. Last guy I wanted to mention, Xavier Worthy for Texas, down to 5K because he had a bad game last week. But this is a guy, he's definitely the number one there. The number one target for Casey Thompson. Now that they have a new quarterback in there, have had for a few weeks now, and Worthy's been his guy. Just last week was a bad stat line for him, but he still got targeted plenty. So I expect Worthy to bounce back. And probably won't see him at 5K because he's going to have good games the rest of the year. True freshman, but he's clearly a favorite of Thompson there. A lot of these guys, it's the more expensive guys. It's tough to roster them when you have all the running backs and quarterbacks who you want to roster at the high end. So just keep that in mind when you're building lineups here. Got about 30 minutes left to lineup block, and we're going to wrap up here in a second. Appreciate you guys all joining us. And I guess, Pete, I want to ask you if you're going to make, have like 1 or 2 core plays, 2 or 3 core plays. Who are you kind of locking in? We talked about a bunch of them already, but if who are your main guys today?
All right, so Malik, Letty, Raheem Jarrett, and I'm really, as we're getting closer to lock, I'm really liking this Rashawn Henry for Virginia as another value. He's a senior. He actually leads Virginia in end zone targets, and we've seen 2 in the last 4 or 5 games. So they use him to stretch the field. He's kind of like my sleeper sneaky play. I'm assuming he's going to be sneaky at 3-3, but I'm not going to call him a core, but I like Henry. So I'm on Letty, Elite, and Raheem Jarrett as like cash cores.
I like that. The Henry 3,300 is insane.
I think it's too cheap. I'm almost thinking of him in cash. I don't want to push people to a 3-3 guy in cash, but you put him and Raheem Jarrett in the same lineup, you can probably maybe get another big gun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll give you my 3. I'm also going Malik Cunningham. I think he's a top play for sure. Obviously this is the week he's not going to score twice on the ground, but I think he's pretty locked into what he's going to do in this high scoring game. I'm also going Tyler Algier for BYU. I like him a lot today. I think 7,800 might look expensive on paper, but I think he's going to return value there. And then, you like a Virginia receiver, and I do too, but I'm going Keaton Thompson.
Agree there too.
Yeah, I love his floor with the rushing and receiving there. I think I think it's a matter of time where he's going to be a lot more expensive than he is at 4,600. I think this is his first time in the wide receiver pool coming over from quarterback position pool. So I think they kind of put him there, but I think he's going to be over 5K shortly here. So, all right, well, that's about us. It from us, guys. Me and Pete will be in the Discord for the next half hour or so, and then kind of throughout the day, check out Pete's playbook for the night slate. As always, he's got that covered. We got entertaining ones, good games coming up tonight. So, and Pete, as always, awesome job today on this week 6 of college football. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you soon, and appreciate you guys listening in here. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, good luck, guys. Thanks.